Hi, I'm Bobby Miller with Safety Speed and Mr. Miller's Woodshop, and today I just want to talk about our one-sheet bookshelf. It starts from one sheet of plywood, turns into this beautiful bookshelf. We use all the machinery here at Safety Speed for that. 100 yards away from me here in Minnesota, all American-made machinery. We'll use the saw and router combination machine. We'll use the screw pocket machine to hold the piece together from the back. We will use the edge bander. Because like I said, we're using plywood pieces, so we'll cover up those ugly edges with some nice veneered edges. You'll need your own drill, your own nail guns. This is also held together with glue, and we'll use shelf pin clips here to hold our shelves on. But otherwise, it's a pretty good project. Should be pretty simple. A lot of folks will like it. Now let's walk through how to build this thing from start to finish. I'm going to be referencing my main cutting list today, but I can also reference that optimized sheet from MaxCut. I've already got my stop set at 46 inches for my initial cross cut right here. My next cross cut has got to be 26 inches, so you just saw me move the stop to 26 inches, and so it's the same process, bringing that saw head straight down through the panel. My last cross cut is going to be 22 3/8, so I'll set the block to that and make my last cross cut. So this is what makes the stop block right here really nice, because I'm going to set this to 10 inches right here, lock it in, and now I need to make two shelves that are identical. So I'm just going to slide this piece over until it hits that stop block, and I can make two of the same identical piece. Really, if I didn't have the stop block, I still could line it up, but it might be different from one operator to another, or one cut to another if you're doing this on different days. Stop block, I'm going to be able to make two real simply and identical. All right, our finished top has got to be 12 inches, so I'm going to adjust that so I got the width to 12 inches for my top. My toe kick has got to be 3 inches. I'm going to have a sub top and a bottom that's 10 1/4, so I'm set to 10 1/4. So you can trust the tape line on the panel saw here, but I still recommend double checking your measurements. That's that measure twice, cut once feature. And I'll have to remember too that on some of these pieces, I'm going to actually have to cross cut them one more time, but I'm going to do that when I'm a little bit more comfortable once I get that midway fence set up in here, just so that I'm not bending over the entire time. But I want to check my widths here. 10 1/4 for my sub top and my bottom. My toe kick is 3 inches, and my finished top is 12 inches. Also recommend too writing what they are so we don't forget, because some of these pieces are very close to the same size. So I'm just going to label them right here at this point, because now I'm getting close to them actually being done. All right, here's one thing you want to think about at this stage here when you're cutting down this bigger chunk that we've already cross cut. You want to look at the wood grain. You want that wood grain to be running up and down, and right now you can see these lines right here. They're running horizontal. We want them to be vertical, so that we're making rip cuts. Right now this piece is 46 by 48, so it's very hard to kind of eyeball that. Make sure you actually see those wood grain lines going up and down the machine. I'm making my right and left sides right now which are both going to be 11 inches wide. Set my stop block. All right, so here I've got all my pieces cut out. Some of them will need to be cut out again, just to their finished lengths. However, I like to have everything spread out so I can see what I've got here. I've got all the pieces on my cut list right here, and if something is missing at this point, look and see what you are missing, and make sure you get that cut out. All right, so now I'm gonna install the midway fence on my SR5U machine. It's a little bit involved, so I've got these clamps right here, so you have to go and hunt these down. But the midway fence is actually right here in the machine itself, and this is a new feature out of Safety Speed, is that these are actually made out of plastic now, so you don't have that swell from the melamine that it was before. And those just fit right in the cams right there. Clamp our stuff right in there. All right, so now that I got my midway fence installed here on my panel saw, what I need to do next is I'm actually gonna make some of those cross cuts that I didn't get to prior, but check it out. I'm comfortable up here, and I actually have the stop block set up over here because I'm only taking a few inches off right here, and so I've got this set at 22.5, which is what my sub top and bottoms need to be. It's really important your sub top and your bottom are the exact same length, so that's why it's almost required that we use the stop block so that they are two identical lengths, because that's what's going to make your entire shelf square. It'll make the shelves fit better, it'll make that toe kick seat in nicer, and it'll give that top offset that perfect reveal. All right, so next what I've got to do is I've got to put the router attachment. Before I do that, I've actually got to take the saw head off, and whenever I do that, I want to bring this down to where it's comfortable for me to work. And so I'm actually going to tighten these red knobs right here so this isn't going to go anywhere. And the way we take this saw head attachment off is, first I'm going to take power off and dust collection off so that that's not going to be in my way. And I'm tightening down here. These two thumb screws right here is all that is holding this attachment on right here. These two thumb screws hold on the plate. So now this is loose, and this one is a little bit trickier because I do have the laser guide on there, but it seems to come off all right. Next, grab my router attachment here. So this is going to go on just like that other one came off. And you want these tight, but you don't want to have a wrench to get them off. So just get them snug. You can check periodically. While we're here too, we'll hook up power now. So it's live. And of course our dust collection. All right, so now I'm set up for rabbits and dados. I would recommend testing just one cut on a piece of scrap just to make sure that the depth is okay. Make sure that everything worked as it should. Of course, my first one, everything did work as it should. Make sure you're utilizing the clamp here to hold your piece tight to the machine. And also, I'm going to utilize this midway stop block as well. So kind of a cool feature on this midway stop block right here is it's got this little outreached arm right here, and so that's going to allow me to go even further into the machine to get it exactly where I want it. And a couple things on this here as well. This does have the capability to do blind dados here, but I want this to start all the way down. It'll actually bump itself up and give me that constant depth. However, I'm also going to have one hand on here, not applying a ton of force, but enough so that I'm going to have a constant depth all the way through as well. All right, so after the dados, we're gonna do rabbets on this opposite side. A couple really important things. You want dust collection on. You also wanna make sure that you're on the same side. So you should be able to see the actual dado when you slide the piece into your saw and router combination machine. So I'm gonna slide this in here. I can see my dado on the same side, and I'm actually gonna utilize this rabbet stop right here. And what that's gonna allow me to do after it's calibrated and set on in, it's gonna miss this aluminum stop and create my rabbet all the way down the end of this piece. Really important, it's clamped in so it's not gonna move while we're actually making our cut. So now I have both my side parts cut right here. At this point, it's very important that they're actually going to match right here, that they mirror one another. We shouldn't have two identical parts. All right, so our next process that we got to do here is to edge band the edges of this plywood here. If you look, you see that you can see the layers of plywood on here. And so I've got all the pieces right here that we're going to edge band. And I've actually written an EB on each edge that I'm going to band. If you look at the actual shelf, we only need basically one piece of edge banding on our subtop, on each shelf, our bottom, and then on one edge of each of our side pieces. And so I want you to go through and actually label that so that when you get to the edge bander, or if you're doing this, however you're doing this, you know that we don't need to edge band more than what we actually need. All right, so the next step in our process is to make adjustable shelf pin holes. And so I'm gonna do that on each one of my side parts. Important that you're gonna do them on the side that has the dados and the rabbets. I've already got one in here, ready to go, but I just wanna show you what the shelf pins are. There's these little tiny things that are gonna go inside our actual cabinet so that we can move those shelf pieces up and down. And so I'm going to use this machine right here. It's a line boring machine. And so each one of these color drill bit heads right here is going to drill a very specific hole to the right depth and the right distance. And I've got this set up to where I've got these stops to where they're going to be parallel and the same on each one that I do. So I got the flip stops right here. And this is going to get clamped down right here. So it's really a hands-off machine. And so that gives you a little bit of a visualization right there of what one side is going to look like. I'm going to flip this around and do the other side as well. Easy as that. That's what one of your parts should look like. All right, now we're at the stage where this thing is going to start to come together. Some important things to note. Your side pieces should have already been completely machined. You should have the rabbets and dados. You should have the shelf pinholes. And additionally, what I've done too is on the back of this dado, I've drawn a line, and it's crude, all right? You could take measurements up from the end here, but I just grabbed a piece of wood, put it across here, snapped a quick line, and now I'm gonna have somewhere to reference because this whole case is gonna be held together with glue and brad nails. And so I'm gonna work through that here. Some additional things, make sure that your shelves have that edge banding on there already and that they're at the proper 22.5 inches. It's gonna make the measurements go better later on, and they need to be exactly the same length so that this thing is going to truly be square. Double check that just in case you made a mistake. It's unlikely the saw made a mistake, but piece will go together square just so long as those are the same length. Okay, I want that edge banded piece to go against the front And so as I'm looking down here, I should see both the unedge banded edges right here, because then I know on the front side, which is face down on this table right here, they're both going to be flush, they'll be flat together, and I've got both of my finished edges showing. I'm going to add a little bit of glue. You don't need a ton. You certainly don't want it oozing out of here. And now that I've got that line, I can very easily follow that. Didn't miss anywhere, that's because I had that line. Don't skip that line part. So now we're going to do the same thing to our sub top piece. And on this one, I'm actually going to put the glue on the sub top edge itself, because I've got this piece tipped up at this point. And that's about all the glue you need. Okay, I'm particular about how much glue you've got on there, because you don't want this slopping out. That glue will actually hurt that finish if you don't clean it up properly, and you might not see it until you actually put that finish on. All right, now to complete the case, I'm going to take my glue, and I'm just going to start with the dado this time. Now I've got it to where my edge banding is actually covering this dado, so no one is ever going to actually see this joint after this step right here, which I think is pretty cool. But in order to get over that lip of that banding, I've got to be very, very careful, because that's actually only 1 millimeter thickness piece of wood veneer. So right now I'm not together. All right, but you can see just that little bit of where this needs to come. And I'm just gonna ever so carefully work some glue into this joint right here. Fall down just like that. Got that pressure? And if you look, I've even got some glue squeeze out on top here. Not a big deal, because that finished top is going to come over that, and we'll scrape that off once it's dry. All right, at this point, the glue is set up, the nails are in there, the case is complete, and so we need to come up with some finished measurements here. My toe kick is going to go right in here, and so we want to make sure we've got the correct distance there. And we're actually going to need to take a measurement here to get the actual length for our toe kick and the width of our back piece. Okay, and we'll go back to the panel saw and we'll cut that to the appropriate length and width so that we can put screw pockets into there, and that actually holds this whole thing together. We'll actually even be able to square it up a little bit more. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to take the router head off and put the saw head back on. Process is very similar. Disconnect my power and dust collection. Loosen my thumb screws. Get your plate aligned with those bolts coming out. Tighten down those thumb screws. Reconnect power and dust collection. Now we're ready to make our cuts. So since we still have our midway fence set up and our saw head attachment is on now, I'm actually going to utilize that to make that specific cut for my toe kick, that cross cut, simply because it's still on here and it's comfortable for me to make this cut this way. And I got that dimension based off of the case of my actual bookshelf that I made. It could be different from your case. Just so it turns out that mine was 21 and 11/16, so that's what I set mine to, so that's the cut I'm going to make. For your toe kick and your back, you want to make that specific to your project. So I've written the plan so that they're too long and too wide on purpose, so that once you get to the point where your case is made, you take that measurement. It just so happens that mine is 21 and 11/16. Yours might be different. but I'm gonna go and cut this so that it's gonna fit perfectly in there to my project. Now what I need to do is to put screw pockets in my toe kick and my back piece. I'm gonna put 2 screw pockets on the backs of my toe kick. And so I'm just putting a couple of reference lines right here because on the 101 Easy screw pocket machine from Safety Speed, I've actually got a little indicator line right here. And so I'll line that up with that line, push it all the way to the fence, clamp it down, turn it on. Make my screw pocket. I'm going to do that 3 more times on this piece and then 8 more times on the back part. These screw pockets are going to do a couple things. They're going to hold the piece in place, but they're also going to add a lot of strength to the case for our bookshelf. And they're also going to eliminate some of the gaps that we may have looking through the front of our shelf. Next step is going to be installing our toe kick, and you're going to actually need a piece of scrap. I just used something from offcut that was laying around the shop here, and so I'm actually going to use that scrap piece and put it underneath to provide that little bit of offset so that this toe kick is actually recessed into my project here. And I'm going to use those screw pockets. I got my screws already ready to go. I'm going to push it up all the way to the top, and if you've done this correctly, it'll be flush right here and right here. But I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure with my thumb here so that I'm not having any gaps anywhere and I'm flush on the bottom. Pull my scrap block out, and there I got my toe kick. All right, now we're gonna put the back on. This is gonna be literally the backbone of our shelf right here. I've got the screw pockets cut. This has been cut to the correct width, and it's the same length as that piece that we cut off of from our initial cross cut. And if you've done this right, this thing should just fit right in there. This is also gonna provide the squareness of our piece because you can trust that panel saw is cutting square. And so I'm just gonna use this to kind of manipulate this entire case so that we're all the way square, all the way around. So now is the exciting part. This is the home stretch right here, the last actual like big time building pieces that we're gonna have. So you need to locate your last piece. One of your last pieces here is that's gonna be your finished top. Be sure that it's edge banded, and you're gonna pick out the side that you wanna look at forever and ever and ever, and put that side face down, because if you've noticed, this case here is upside down, and you're gonna assemble this whole thing upside down because we're gonna drive screws through the inside up into your finished top. And I'm gonna flush this up on the back side here so that I'm flush right in here. Should be right about 1.5 inches. But take these measurements specific to your project because it may be different at this stage than it is mine. And then we're gonna actually take 6 screws. You can use the same screws that you used before. You might say, well, I could probably get by with just 2, but whenever you go to move this thing, you're gonna lift it from this top. So you want a good joint right there. All right, at this point, it's an exciting piece. We've got our back in, our toe kick is in, this entire case is assembled, and so here we're at the home stretch. Some things to note, your shelf is gonna have to be cut down to the actual specific length to fit in between here, but right now what I've got are my shelf pin clips, and I'm gonna put those, and you can kind of be specific or pick out where you wanna put them, but I've got these shelf pins back here where I want them. I'm going to make sure that my finished edge, the edge that I edge banded a long time ago, is right there. There we have it. We got 2 shelves now. So final step before we put any stain or any kind of finish on here is we're going to want to go through and sand off any of our pencil marks, any of our burn marks, any imperfections you may see. Ease the edges, but I recommend using a sponge sand block. Don't use an orbital sander or anything major because the veneer on these are usually really thin, and so we want to avoid chipping any of the ends, and so it's just as simple as putting some time in with that block, removing all those blemishes that you may see, and then at that point when all those are gone, then you can move to finish.